Fresh out of high school, infused with way too much wanderlust and independence, I decided that I would travel a bit before I had to knuckle down to go to college. So I ended up on the island paradise of Maui, Hawaii. And I rented a room from a family that had lived on the island for generations. And immediately they took me in like I was family. And they didn't know me, and I didn't know them. But they were just so hospitable and caring. And I watched over about a year of living with them how they shared that culture of care and that sharing and that servant heart with their friends, their family, their community, and their workplace. And they explained to me that it was their essence of ohana, which in the Hawaiian culture is really the definition of taking care of family. And it aligns itself so beautifully with the concept of hospitality, which is the act of care and welcoming a visitor, guest, or stranger. And I was a stranger in their home. They didn't know who I was, but you'd never know that because they were so ingrained, this family. There were 3 generations of family living in the home. And with me, there were 8 of us in this very teeny tiny home with 1 bathroom. So we were very cozy, but they were so respectful to everyone that they encountered. And I didn't know it then, but I definitely know it now. It was the introduction for me in a world of hospitality and in a journey of my career. And I can remember early on being at the kitchen table for breakfast, and I was looking out the window at their home, and through the window I could see these beautiful papaya trees, and I was commenting how I had never seen anything like that. Before I know it, out of the corner of my eye, I see the little one that couldn't have been much more than about 4 years old at the time, scurrying up this tree and coming back with several papayas in his hand. And from there on, I had fresh papaya almost every morning. Now that's a sense of caring in a little teeny tot, but it was all through that family. So I posed the question, can a culture of care change the service industry? And yes, it can, because care is at the core of every service initiative. And when we think about it, that's the relationship between a guest and a customer and how critical that is. First, we have to care for the employees so they can care for the customer. So yes, it absolutely can. So I always marvel at it, why we often are in the service environment and we see things fall flat or fall short. Not too long ago, I was at a restaurant with some friends and we sat down quickly. They were very efficient to get us seated, but then we watched the server go back and forth and just kind of buzz by our table. She didn't ever look our way. She didn't acknowledge us. And finally, when she came to our table, this is what she said. "Are you guys ready to order?" It wasn't, "Hi, my name is," or, "Oh, welcome to this restaurant." It was just an efficiency. And that's how it went through the whole meal. It was very efficient. But it fell flat because there was no engagement, no friendliness. There was no relationship that had been developed. And for all of us at the table who had never been to the restaurant before, we kind of walked away not so impressed. Not with the product, but with the service. So you wonder, how does that happen? At least I walked off wondering 2 things about this particular server. One, I wonder why someone so grumpy would choose to be in a career that required them to have a relationship with the customer. And 2, I wonder why she's so grumpy. Because in the workplace, as employers, we are receiving people who have baggage. They come to our workplace and they have all kinds of emotions, they have all kinds of feelings. But as an employer in the service and hospitality industry, it's important that we model that culture of care with them first, to recognize them as human beings, to realize that they do have emotions they bring into the workplace, but to set the high standards of service, because that relationship between customer and employee is so critical, especially to retain a customer in today's world. So I had to look and think, now who does this really well? And I thought back to my days at the Walt Disney Company And I realized they are a master at creating that relationship between guest and employee. And regardless of how anybody felt coming into the workday, you had to check it at the door, because for that organization, you were on stage. And when you were on stage, you had another persona. Didn't matter if you had a flat tire, if you had a fight with someone, in the household that day, you got there and you had a smile on your face. And that creates the environment, especially in the service industry. So I want to talk about service and hospitality, because it's definitely what I have made a lifelong passion out of, and a career choice. And it's a great career choice for everyone, whether you're brand new in the business, or a high schooler not sure what they want to do and they want to get into something. Hospitality and service is great because it gives them an opportunity to work with the public and the intensity that comes with the service and hospitality industry. In this industry, it is strong. In fact, the October job report just came out, and in the nation, there were 53,000 jobs added in the hospitality and service industry. That's fantastic news, right? Because we've gone through some tough years, but this is good news. And in 2014, the hospitality and service industry anticipates great growth. Now, right now, there's about 8% of the American workforce that works in the hospitality industry. So it's healthy, and it will continue to be healthy. In our own community here, we see openings of restaurants and retail and wineries, casinos, dining, lodging, and resorts. But the service industry even goes a little bit further than that, because anytime you have a relationship where you're trying to get something from your customer or to the employee, that's service. So it could be where you have your nails done, or you have your car fixed, or on the phone trying to deal with an issue. And if we cannot, as employers of this industry, model a culture of care, how could we ever expect that our employees can push that out to the customer? It's real critical. It's critical. But we know that we have to have happy, engaged, and interested employees working in this industry. But we know that that doesn't always happen. Now, what's really interesting about the demographics of trying to hire in this industry is that just in 2013, the American Workplace Report came out. It indicated that 70% of the respondents said they were not happy with their jobs. They were disengaged and disinterested. Now, that's not a formula for success when you come to the hospitality industry, because as the consumer, you get that on the other end with the example I gave of the server who just didn't really seem to care. So there's some remedy to this, though. That's the same respondents said, look, if my company would just pay attention to the strengths that I bring to the organization, help me grow a little bit in their organization. Also, what I contribute, I mean, there's always accomplishments to any employee, and if an organization notes those accomplishments and then takes care of them, their well-being, that happiness level would go up. And I think that's true, but 70%, that's 7 out of 10. So we have to do better in that regard. There is a return on investment, though, with those companies that understand a culture of care. Because when that's implemented and the employer is really paying attention to their staff, they get a higher employee engagement, which means more customer service, higher levels of productivity, because we all know when you're not happy with your work, you kind of slack off a little bit and you don't give it your all. And then most importantly, a culture of care can have a resolution of having stronger employee retention and stronger customer retention. So let's think about that employee retention for a minute. The cost of turnover is expensive, and employers know that. It's tough to get the right person in place, but it's even tougher to keep them in place. So there's a turnover factor that employers want to watch very carefully, because it's a bottom line cost to their company. In addition, retaining a customer, I don't even know how you put a value on that. But if you're in the service industry and you get somebody through your door, you want them to come back. Because 90% of the consumers that go elsewhere go elsewhere because they did not have a good experience. It's 90% that you might be losing out your door. So it's critical to have that culture of care implemented in your organization. So what does this look like when I'm talking about culture of care? Let me give you a scenario if you're a manager out today in the audience. If you're a manager, we know that's a tough job. It's sometimes thankless. But let's just say in this case, we have a manager and he has a stellar staff. He's been very happy with all of them, and he's had the same team for years. And one in particular has been fantastic, a single mom. She's tried extra hard because she likes her job and she's happy with everything about it. But the manager has observed over the last several months that this employee is calling in sick, she's not showing up, or she's showing up late, but he doesn't want to bother, he doesn't want to ask her what's going on, so he's leaving it alone, hoping it will go away. But we all know these things don't naturally go away on their own. So he's getting more and more frustrated, and one final call in, it festers, he's had enough, he kicks it up to human resources, and he says, you take care of the problem, just fire her. Now in human resources, we see this often. The employee or the manager is just getting a little too angry at the employee. So human resources calls that employee in and sits her down and asks a pretty simple question. What's going on? What's causing your performance to slip? You're a great employee. What is happening? So the employee takes a deep breath and she says, recently I've had to take my elderly dad into my home. He has advanced stages of dementia, and I'm the only one in the family that can handle him. So I brought him into my home, but to pay for that care, I'm now working Saturday and Sunday. I've gotten another job as well as this job. In addition, my middle schooler is being so tormented and bullied in school, and I don't know what to do with that. I'm so frustrated. And so I'm back and forth to the school administration trying to handle the situation because it's so scary. And not that I needed another cloud to burst, but my car's transmission blew last month, and I've just been scrambling to get to work, to get to my son, to get to take care of my dad. One of my first employers in human resources told me something profound. Be kind, because everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. And I believe that to be true, every single one of us to some degree. And employers have to consider what's going on with their employees if they want to implement a culture of care. And if it had been implemented in this situation, the manager would not have been frustrated as much as he was, and the employee would not have been left to be disengaged and disinterested, wondering, I wonder why after all these years working for this business, no one even cared to ask what was going on. You see, we cannot have unhappy, disengaged, disinterested people working our front line as our service ambassadors, because your product may get them through the door originally, right? We all have a product, but guess what? Our product has competition. Almost all of us have some type of competition. So service is the differentiating factor to not only getting a customer through the door, but keeping a customer through the door. Critical, absolutely. So I want to share with you a story about how a company locally has implemented a culture of care effectively. This is a local service industry. They've been in our community for about 5 years. And before they even opened their door, I had a chance to meet with the owners. And they said to me they were going to do something a little bit different. They were going to ensure that their employees understood they were valued in their organization. So the company owners decided to pay a little bit more in a wage. They gave them a great opportunity, if they wanted to stay with the organization, to grow. And they gave them a great work environment. And to this day, they do some fun little perks, like give a fully stocked break room. Now, one would say, what does that matter? It just reinforces that sense of ohana, that sense that, these are not just my employees, they are valued to me. And I'll tell you something, it's worked. Because this year, this particular service organization, was named the #1 clinic out of 600 in the nation. Now, that doesn't come by happenstance. That comes by an organization valuing their most important asset, their employee. Mary Catherine Beatson, a cultural anthropologist, once said, "Caring can be learned by every individual, can be weaved into the design of every life to meet an individual need or a pervasive need in society." So can a culture of care change the service industry? Yes, it can, by means of better employee engagement, stronger customer service levels, higher levels of productivity, and increased retention of employees and customers. A company's commitment to the essence of ohana and hospitality will change the service industry. Thank you.